From start to end, it was about 15 months. But we didn't shoot the whole 15 months. It was on and off because we had a lot of technical problems.
The whole process is very painful because it's like loving two persons at the same time.
He says, this f***er says to me, is that all you can do, Chris?
And you don't know when will he shoot again. You have to, keep the mood.
拍緊呢個戲嘅時候咧，我哋一直喺度諗緊就話幾時先係最尾嘅鏡頭咧？
If a script writer and a director if they spend 6 months in an office writing a script, we spent 6 months of this shooting things to make the script a script.
成場好錫咧，即係對呢個演員嚟講做嘅時真係幾辛苦下。咁然後大家仲要煙煙悶悶咧，即係又唔係好多嘢講嘅，已經即係好多嘢講得出嚟。
We have to find a way to stop this production. We need a deadline. So, I said, we can go to Cannes, and now we know we have to stop.
In 1997, Wong Kar-wai planned to make 2 films, Happy Together in Argentina and a more light-hearted film in China.
His concept initially was that the China film would be called Summer in Beijing and would be largely concerned with the relationship in terms of food.
其實北京之下只不過係一個 idea， 我諗冇 grow 到一個好 solid 嘅故仔。
Well, in fact, we started the project, and it has 3 stories in it. The actual story we see in A Mood for Love actually is only 30 minutes. It's only concentrated in the restaurants, in the noodle shops, the staircase, they buy noodles, the telling and affairs.
He adapted the idea from a Japanese short story that is about 2 neighbors. It's very much about the 2 people going up and down the staircase and seeing each other in the staircase. And that gave him the idea to have us as neighbors, and all the rest was just improvised after that.
Improvised by him or improvised on set?
On set by him.
In fact, the main reason for me to make that project is I like this story, so I forget about this another 2, so I didn't make it. I just expand the whole thing. The most difficult part is we started like a quick lunch, but it became a big feast at the end.
You start shooting without real script, and that you are writing during the shooting.
During shooting, we are just like a hungry man because we don't know if we can go back to this location or not. So we just shoot as much as we could.
Shooting started in February 1999, but before the film became what we know today, it had many different directions, with different characters and tones. Initially, it was more comedic and erotic, with the 2 characters meeting in restaurants, and the hotel room 2046, where they cooked. Sang Chinese operas, and even danced.
I think we arrived on set that day and he told us we were dancing.
Yes.
We didn't know beforehand.
唔知點解冇用咧，我覺得太好笑，所以咧就喺度夾舞咁樣兩個喺房。
That scene was fun actually. The only fun scene in the film.
即係拍過嗰啲哚，係好似你話齋，即係係好多笑嘢咁成場。
And also at the beginning, the idea was that we would play the husband and wife
too.
In the Mood for Love itself morphed into a much, much more serious piece. It went through quite lengthy development.
We started from 1962 until 1972. It is 10 years. At the end, I decided to stop in 1966 because that will be an epic, There's too much. The scale is too big. And I don't think we are financially or physically is affordable. So we stopped in 1966. Well, actually, we looked for a place to end the film. And our production manager said, okay, why don't you shoot it in Englewood?
I did shoot a scene with Tony there that we haven't seen each other for a few years and we bumped into each other there. But the scene was cut out.
But that was a great scene.
It was a nice scene. And there was one great line that he asked me right at the end of the film.
你係咪有打個電話俾我？
And I said, 我唔記得啦。 and then the film ends. It was kind of very beautiful. But I don't know why he cut it out. I have to ask him.
During this editing process, then we have all these materials lined up to us, and then we select what actually is essential to the stories.
The rough cut of the film is like 3 hours, and there's only one love scene in it. There's not a lot.
You'd think it would be a nightmare for an independent producer, and it was a nightmare for the independent producer because Wong Kar-wai was his own producer, and he almost went bust.
In our productions, basically, because we produce our films, and basically it's every day is like a war. We have to fight for what we want. We work with the money, which is very limited.
And eventually you also started another film.
Of course.
We're trying to finish the production of this film in August last year, but obviously we are too slow, and because we also have the economic crisis in Asia. So all the investors of this film, In the Mood for Love, has problems, so we have to stop the production and find another investors. And by the time we have already committed to make a film called 246, so that means we have 2 films mixed together, the schedule.
It took 15 months, partly because it took such a long time to evolve the tone, the style, the look, the feeling, and the themes of the film, but also because he shot the film twice. He shot it first in Hong Kong with Chris Doyle on camera.
What I feel is that the role of a cinematographer is like a whore. I mean, I really believe, you pay me, I give you a good time.
Long time.
No, short time. With Wong Kar-wai, long time.
He decamped to Bangkok to start shooting 2046.
To find a set with 2 houses next door to each other with a staircase that he liked was very hard, and it had to look like it was from the 60s. And in Hong Kong, it's almost impossible to find a set like that.
Took one look at Bangkok's Chinatown and said, this looks more like Hong Kong in the 1960s than anything in Hong Kong. We should have shot on location here, and proceeded to do so. So he shot the film again. It was soon after that decision that Chris Doyle walked out, somehow unwilling to shoot the film again, and Mark Lee came in to take over.
There's something about this wall and the sense of loneliness. There's something about the way in which, it is falling apart. But you can see there is a cragginess. There is a sense of loss there. And then, for some reason, as soon as I put the lights here, which was very simple lighting, the actors were throwing shadows on the wall, which gave it a slightly more, another level of intensity, or another level of loneliness, or another level of whatever you're going to call it. For some reason, I walked inside. I came in here, which is somebody's house, a lot of people's house, actually. And I just felt that giving one more level of detachment, one more level of remove made it even more lonely. So we shot most of that sequence. We shot through here as a tracking shot.
I think that in the process, there will be a lot of sparks, or there will be accidents, or there will be situations. You have to make certain adjustments.
It didn't happen because we thought it through. It happened because this space, with this light, with this particular possibility, gave us this moment.
All the exteriors are shot in Bangkok. The office are shot in Bangkok. The newspapers is shot in Bangkok because they have the old building.
At a certain point, we have to make 2 films back to each other's.
Chris has only finished 1/3 of the film, so Mark Lee, Lee Ping-bing, the cameraman of Ho Xiaoshan, and we once worked on the project of Fallen Angels because Chris is away as usual. It is a new experience to me because in the past, I can be a little bit lazy because I can rely on Chris, on the framing, on the lighting, because I don't have to pay too much attention on that because I know he knows what I want. And now because I'm working with Lee Ping-bing on this project, it is not a film that looks like my previous film.
I would defy anybody seeing the film to say who shot what, because it actually looks very much of a piece all the way through. And that's because the actual DOP was Wong Kar-wai.
So I have to control all the things, and I'm more involved in the framing, lighting, everything. And it is a creative process. I can get more control on it, and I think now the look of the film is more attached to the content.
For the first time in his career, this was a film where he knew exactly what he wanted. He knew exactly the framing, exactly the lighting, exactly the look of the film.
The biggest challenge is we always want to keep the audience as one of the neighbors. So the way we see these two persons is always behind something.
In the 1990s, he was spending his time looking at art films. Suddenly, this is a director who has a very different sense of what is possible in cinema and what his status might be in cinema. So suddenly we have a director who, unlike the Wong Kar-wai of the 1980s, is familiar with Robert Bresson, is familiar with Luchino Visconti.
The movement of these actors is limited to certain space, certain environments. So it is very challenging to do that. Because I think it's all about suspense, and we learned it from Bresson, we can only see the close-up, we cannot see the whole things. There's so many imagination outside the frame.
Bresson is the one who teaches him how you can do certain things with a concentration on detail. And that's also a reason for doing away with the kind of rather free-form handheld camera work that Doyle had excelled in. Here he wanted monumental compositions where everything was determined and everything was carefully planned.
In the process of making these films, there's so many things come up, like when we're shooting on the street. The street reminds me of Italian films, reminds me of Antonioni. I feel we're shooting something like Antonioni, so it is like a homage to all these people.
My advice to film students is see as much film as you can. Bad films are good films. Good films can teach you something, and bad films can teach you something too.
The biggest challenge for Tony and Maggie is, I tell them this film is not going to be verbal. You are not going to express yourself through dialogues. Everything is expressed through the body, through the people, how they walk, how they move.
Wong Kar-wai is, yes, he's totally in love with the charisma of his actors, feels that it's an essential ingredient in the film. He doesn't feel that he's the kind of director who tells the actor what they have to do. He's not a very hands-on director in terms of how to give the performance.
I have no interest to like to create an idea and then to ask someone to fit in this. It is not my method.
即係呢啲嘢係辛苦，但係到收尾係已經嗰個辛苦係我自己個掙扎係。
Maggie 開頭嗰陣時，開頭做都會有好多問題啦，因為佢好耐冇同嘉偉合作，唔係好清楚佢工作嘅方式，所以佢係問題少女，好多問題，每日都想知道究竟係點。咁我就成日同佢講嘅話，你唔好知啦，知嚟都冇用啦。
We know it's a forbidden love. We know that it's about regrets, as usual. What else? It wasn't much.
佢自己嗰套就係永遠都唔話俾你聽嗰個故仔係咩咯。
First of all, I hate writing because that's the most lonely moment, right, in the creative process, because you are dealing with a piece of papers and you are all by yourself.
At first, I really found that why do you have to make films like that? Why can't you get it all prepared and then we start shooting instead of having 30, 40 people on set every day waiting for you to be inspired?
But I have to write, so I just may make it the last minute.
It took me a long time to really forgive him for being like that, if you will.
For Maggie, she's my first leading lady.
咁如果你正式合作，咁就阿飛正傳啦。咁嗰就10年前啦。個分別最主要，我諗大家都長大咗咯。
She didn't came from any acting background, and she's started from a beauty pageant. She's not even the Miss Hong Kong. She's kind of a run-up. But
I was a model by accident somehow, and then I was in a beauty pageant in Hong Kong somehow by accident again, and then somehow by accident again I was cast in the film, and from there it just went on and on and on.
Working with Maggie gave me the confidence how to direct an actress.
And I used to ask a lot of questions.
Every day?
Every day I said, what's going on? What is my character? Can you tell me more? I just need to work on this. Give me some space. And I'll speak to Tony about that because there's no one else who can share that frustration with me. And he would just say, chill out, relax. Just do as you're told and stop asking questions.
But I think for the actors, this is a quite frustrating process. It's not the easiest thing in the world to act in these circumstances, especially if it's going to drag on and on and on, and you're going to have to turn down other work in order to stick with it.
there's nothing I can do about it. That's his style. And to love him as a director or as a friend, you just have to accept that that's the way he is.
She was used to doing several films a year and getting a certain amount of income from these things. And here's Wong Kar-wai basically demanding her exclusive services for 15 months.
Because it took so long to make, we had time to really get into it, especially for myself, how I looked in the film, the hair, the makeup, the dresses. I had a hard time to deal with it at the beginning, but after like 9 months, I got used to it and everything became very natural.
Actually, I don't have that kind of frustration because I've been working with Kar-wai for quite a long time and I get used to his way of making movies. So actually, it's quite easy for me.
Our Maggies and our Tonys and our Leslies, they don't give a shit. They are there for us. They're not actors, they're participants.
So in the end, I stopped asking questions and I found it actually quite easy to work that way when you just do it with your instincts on the set at that moment and just let it flow and not be prepared.
我相信拍到呢部，我同導演講，我話以後你最想拍嘅都好難揾 cast 嘅，因為而家啲嗰時候嘅嗰啲50、60年代嗰啲男女嗰啲戲真係越嚟越少。
From not liking how I looked in the film or having to wear the dresses because it restricted me so much, in the end it was that helped me to move the way a woman did in the 60s.
They always ask to do something like similar, but I always encourage to do something that is different. I said, don't worry, try. You never know, and I promise you, I will be your safety net. If it doesn't work, it won't be in the film. And I always keep my promise.
但係依家係會覺得電影係一嚿嘢嚟嘅，電影係永遠嘅，你拍咗出嚟，你15個月痛苦係唔代表咩？因為50年後啲人可能仲睇緊嘅。我覺得因為呢啲嘢係擺到落棺材咯，錢擺唔到咯。
I think In the Mood for Love is both some kind of peak, it's certainly a peak for him personally, and also a millstone, because I think Wong Kar-wai's work has always been fundamentally very personal for him.
In the Mood for Love is about my memory of my childhood. This is a Hong Kong which has been lost, so it is about an era. Sometimes it's not a film is not about the characters themselves, it's about the whole period,
I come from this background, and as a kid, I heard about gossips, and I know our neighbors, and I want to recreate this part.
It recalls me the times of my childhood because I was born in the 60s. I can still remember when I was a kid, the neighbors were very close to each other and we know each other very well. We used to go to the neighbors who played there every day and we never closed our doors.
Those things have gone, by and large, and I think Wong Kar-wai is attracted to them because they've gone. I mean, he feels that something that he valued and loved and cherished and was an important part of his growing up is not there anymore.
Okay, well, the question is about the selection of music specifically for In the Mood for Love, but it's critical in all of your films.
My mom is responsible for that. She passed away before that film. My mom has very good taste about music, and Nat King Cole is her favorite. So in a way, I want to recapture that period. And somehow I discovered there's a Spanish version sung by Nat King Cole, so I use that in the film as a memory of my mom.
There's two things that Wong Kar-wai says. One is, have you read this? And the second thing is, listen to this. I think that the street should look like this. So how does the street look like music? And I think that's the great, what's it called, synergy.
I was told that you play music often when you shoot. Yeah, I heard it's you did that also. Yes, yeah. I learned it from you. Yeah.
Sometimes I will play the music to the actors or play the music to the cameramen to let them know the rhythm.
In the absence of concrete direction about the character and the way the role was going to develop, they had at least something to go on, which was the music that he played.
For example, in the movement of a camera, it's the rhythm of it's the It's not just A and B. It's always it is music. I think all art aspires to music.
To make a film for me is the actual process of production is vacation to me. And I enjoy the process very much.
I don't think the film would have been the same if it wasn't us because the characters in the end were inspired by us. So definitely I do feel, there's my blood and soul in the film.
I agree.
You're so lazy.
I have to thank Cannes, the festival, for many reasons. They become the time for me to stop shooting my film. And they keep saying that, well, the schedule is up, you have to send your print to Cannes, and this is the only reason that we have to stop at that point,
I still remember the day when we get to Cannes, because we are the last film showing the festival. We just arrived the day before the last days. Even myself, we haven't seen a finished film. So it's a terrible experience, but it's very exciting. But I don't want to try that again.
Quite a bit of fine-tuning took place after the first screenings of the film, partly because the enormous rush to finish the damn things for their premieres at Cannes. But then he feels free to recut, to rethink, to revise.
There's the script, and there's the working experience, and then there's the edit, and they are really separate pursuits.
Well, I think for directors, you spend like 2 years to make a film. So of course, you will wait until the last minutes and to make sure that this is the best you can do.
I was depressed for 2 or 3 weeks after the whole thing, because 1 week after the shoot, we were literally in Cannes doing the premiere. I wasn't out of the character yet, and before I knew it, I was answering questions, doing the premiere, and I have the feeling now I have no more obligations. I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. anymore for a 3-hour hairdo. It's like, I didn't think I would miss it, and I didn't miss it, but it made me depressed for a little while to think, now what am I going to do with my life,
And I think much of the difficulties that Wong Kar-wai had in shooting 2046 are to do with the fact that he had opened up so much in The Mood for Love. And in my view, all of these problems, the problems that he has had in his latter day work, spring from the fact that he kind of peaked in The Mood for Love.
I think overall in Asia, the quality of the films has been improved a lot. But I think there's no filmmakers like the old filmmakers, like Ozu or Kurosawa, they can create details which is extremely beautiful or extremely precise. Overall, we are better, but there's no exceptionally good.